Hi. Hey, Neenie.
Oh my goodness. Hey, how are you?
Great.
I'm so excited to come today.
Welcome to the House of Whimsical Terror.
It is frightening.
Yeah, but
So
fun at the same time, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, where did all this stuff come from?
Well, I made most of it, I think, just
All of it.
except for the gauze. I didn't make the gauze. But most of it I did make, and I've had a lot of fun over the last few years putting it together. So I'd like to show you some of the stuff that we have over there.
All
too,
right,
if
I
you
would
like.
love to see it.
Okay.
So this all seems to have like a dark tone while everything is bright and cheery. What's going on here?
Well, that's why it is whimsical terror. You know, you never know. Around every corner, you might be, displeased.
What do you call this?
This is just an apothecary table, or my version of it. So I have like a head up there with twigs coming out, and I have just collected different kinds of bottles over the years, and skulls and things like that. So it's meant to be, someplace where a mad scientist.
Look at these. I mean, some of them look really old.
A mad scientist, making his concoctions for good or evil. I'm not really sure. So that's what that is. And then I think, did I show you the pumpkin heads up there?
I want to know about this.
Oh, my umbrella.
I love that. I just love that.
I have a few of them around the house. And those came about in the funniest way. One time I had a party with a Japanese theme, and so I had ordered all of these umbrellas. They were just simple paper umbrellas. And then after the party, I put them to use out in my garden over the summer. And they got really beaten up between the winds and the rains and stuff. So at the end of the summer, I thought, well, it's time to trash them. So I was almost throwing it into the trash can, and this idea came to me that if I painted them black, they would look like they were burnt. So I got a bunch of them and painted them black, and so that's the end result. They look like maybe they've been in a house fire or something.
Yeah. And so these are what? These are made out of?
Just paper mache. You blow up a balloon, and then you, flour, water, and newspaper strips, and then you just paint them in some kind of creepy, scary way.
And is that something you'd put on your head, or is it just?
Some occasions, my grandsons have used some of them for Halloween costumes, and then they've been retired to just decorations.
And I recognize that from a previous party. Didn't you crown someone?
Oh yeah. That story is that we have a snow queen party every year. We crown a new snow queen in the family, and the men in the family started to get really, really jealous of that, and my grandson especially. And he was like, "Well, we should have, a snow king." And I'm like, "No, that can't happen. But maybe we could have Halloween king." And so my son and my grandson made that one, and he got to dress up as the Halloween king. And then this one was my first one, and it's my favorite.
Oh, I love the green stripes.
So
what's happening?
Over a year, I made velvet pumpkins, and I'm always looking for ways to do things really inexpensively, and reusing old stuff like old, costume jewelry. And these are just filled, instead of buying filler or something, I just use plastic bags from the grocery store. So I've got a
really smart
of the velvet pumpkins with little doodads to make them look special.
Did you dye the gauze, or is that?
No, some of them came black, and some of them are white, and some of them are gray. I did use some tea or coffee. You can dip anything like this one here. It's stained with coffee and tea to make it look aged.
So this whole room, you not only decorated, but most of the components in here you made.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's just more fun that way. And I encourage anybody just to try it, because ideas will come to you. And not all ideas are original to me. Like, I look at magazines, I look at other people's art, I look at Pinterest. So I get my inspirations from everywhere. And sometimes you'll get an inspiration But then when you start making it, it kind of becomes your own. You get other ideas, or you look around the house and see what you've got to add to it, and put your own little stamp on it.
When do you start though? I mean, do you start 3 months ahead or 2 months ahead decorating?
I decorate all the time.
Yeah, I know.
I'll show you in a little while. We'll go outside and I'll show you what I call the girls of the night. And I started those last year, like in March, you know, and then I work on them a little bit at a time throughout the summer because, you know, you have other stuff to do, like mop floors and, you know, wash dishes and
pick up the kids, right?
And do gardening. So, so it's something that I just kind of work on all year long, whether it's the Christmas stuff or the Halloween stuff or the Easter stuff. I just like to, you know, work on little things like that throughout the year.
That's amazing.
It's a mess.
Let's go outside, guys.
Well, if you walk through here, I'll show you the trick-or-treat parade. This was something I started about 12 years ago, and I just started making one little creature at a time, and most of them have little fat bellies, and you have to wonder what they've been eating. And it's a mix between kind of ominous looking ones, like the clowns, like who would want to run into that guy on the
They're
dark
also
street?
different, and there's so many.
And actually, I've given away about half of my collection, so this is what's left of them.
Is that a little candle or?
No, it's just this was something that this little guy here and this little guy here. I think I just bought them at a thrift store.
So you just saw them.
I didn't make them, but although I did make the houses. I made this house and these houses and this house, and then some of these are meant to be something else. But when you repaint them or you embellish them with something else, they can turn into
Halloween
creepy stuff. So that's
nice.
The trick or treat parade.
Oh my goodness!
Welcome to my garden.
This is a fairy tale.
Well,
oh my God.
It's one of my favorite spots.
Oh,
I think backyard, you might as well do it up, don't you think?
Wow. Okay, so here's some of the garden.
Yeah, I've been working on the garden throughout the summer.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I like to have purpley stuff along with lime green stuff, and of course mums and marigolds and these wonderful sunflowers that are coming up over here.
And pomegranate.
Oh yeah, so all these kind of say fall, at least fall in Tucson. Maybe not fall in Vermont, but it's the closest I can get to it over here. And I like having little things that kind of surprise you in my garden, like this Aztec calendar has a history of over 54 years. My mom made it for us when we had our junior-senior prom back in 1969. So I've lugged it around with me to every single house.
It is so wonderful.
It just reminds me of her. So I love
absolutely.
And then over here to the right, we have the wonderful Dark Ladies of the Night, and so this was my latest project. I worked on this over the summer.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
It is kind of scary, but hopefully we're all here to protect them. And I'm not sure if these ladies are really good or bad, but
so you made, I know you've arranged this, but you made these girls.
Again, it's just paper mache and clay. I started out with smaller balloons and paper mache them, and then put a layer of clay to give them a little bit more depth and definition, and then just paint, and I made their bodies out of PVC pipe and chicken wire, and got to dress them up in some of my old clothes.
Yeah, and they all have, they look like maybe they were based on someone or did they just end up like that?
They just, I'm not as that good of an artist that I could just say, oh, I'm going to make one that looks like Neenie, although I wish I could. So when I was working on them, and they sort of came to life with paint, and they started to look like different people to me. Some look like my nieces, and then some look like my sisters, and one looks like me. Or so I thought. You know.
And these are little graveyards of the children that got eaten or something. That's what I'm thinking.
It's that whimsical terror thing. I'm not going to divulge too much. You have to put your own thoughts into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that could have happened because they look full and satisfied.
Did you find these shoes at thrift stores, or these are from family members?
You know,
some of them look pretty old and authentic.
These right here are mine. I have pictures of me wearing both of these.
Oh.
These still smell like pee. You know, I guess I was getting potty trained back then. Oh, I swear they do.
I don't know.
Yeah. You don't want to know. But there is that faint. It is getting fainter by the year, but yeah, other shoes that I collected along the way, I got from little thrift stores. And then
these are little fairies or gremlins. What do you call these little or what?
That's their babies, you know. They had babies.
They're not going to get eaten though.
No. Well, we don't know that for sure, but I don't think so. They don't look that tasty.
How long did it?
This girl is wearing a little necklace of shoes. I don't know where she got them.
I love that.
I'll have to ask her.
That could be a trend.
Oh, shoes for necklaces.
How long did it take you to make the girls?
Well, I started working on them in March, and then by August, I guess I was finished. So, like I said earlier, you know, it's just something that I start, and like at first I thought, oh, I'm just going to make that one, and that one. I was going to make 3. And then I was sort of pleased with the way they came out, and I thought, well, no, I think maybe a couple more. So sometimes I think a project is going to take so long, but you know, it turns into something else. So I worked on them for a few months, but it's hard to say as far as hours because it's 2 hours this day, it's 6 hours another day, and then I don't work on it for 2 weeks.
So where do you have a workshop or?
I used to. I have a little room, back bedroom that I have my little craft supplies, and I got my TV and my soda pop and stuff.
Do they have names?
That one's Coco, and that one's Eugenia, and the other ones don't. Thought about maybe one of these being Ivy, but I haven't officially named them yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go see some more stuff.
Okay, let's go. And again, it's just things that you can pick up on the side of the road. There was this Barbie doll house
my goodness,
on the side.
Yes, so.
And so I thought, well, wouldn't that look great painted black? And that's what that is. And it was caused quite a sensation at the party because everybody thought it looked like a great haunted house.
It does.
And
I'm on the perfect placement.
I know, it's just perfect. And then the other thing that I wanted to show you over here, you might check it out. I have several of these. They're desert spoons. And one time,
what plant? The plant is.
It's the one that's in the front that my aunt brought from Mexico City.
That story, yeah.
And so when the original plant died, I was trying to dig it out, and I noticed all these spoons were, you know, this was just a spear from it. And so I pulled it off, and again, as I'm throwing it like trash, I'm like, wait, we can do something with it. So for practically nothing, I made all these little creepy creatures.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I didn't notice these the other night.
And these have had their better days. When they were brand new, they were had more glitter on them and crepe paper ruffles and stuff like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Devil's Claws.
Yeah.
We would go, because we had those gourds in San Pedro Valley.
And what would you do with them?
We'd spray paint them gold or
make
a wreath. Or, everybody had a
Those are beautiful too. Yeah, it's amazing the things that you can look around in nature and make a little something special out of them. So that's that.
So this is the last time you're doing it, you told me?
Yeah, it is. I've been making these guys for about 13 years now, and uh, it's time to start giving them away. I have given. This is actually probably half of the original collection. I have given them away uh, as the years have gone by, but then I always make more. So this is the first year I
Yeah.
didn't make any more new ones, and I've got some takers lined up for him. So nieces and grandsons and my own sons are interested in taking a few
Yeah.
of them.
I can't imagine where you would store all this. So giving it away is going to be a great
It
remembrance.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
Let somebody else do it, and I mean, I just think it'll be fun for them. It was for me. I didn't do it because it
Yeah.
was work. I did it because it was
Yeah,
fun.
well, it's obvious the vibe is just so welcoming and wonderful. Uh, we've been friends for a long time, and I know that you grew up in Ajo. Can you tell me about growing up in Ajo and what how that influenced your warm and welcoming home and just some stories about your family?
Well, I always say that Ajo is really the very best place to have grown up. We all, those of us who grew up there have really, for the most part, really fond memories of that little mining town. It was established by John Greenway and his wife Isabella Greenway, and she was
Mm-hmm.
very influential in designing um, the whole town. So it's not just a
Well, and
pass through
Tucson.
town. It's not a pass through town that you
Mm-hmm.
have a couple of markets or a couple of bars and then you're off to another place. It was developed by Isabella Greenway. She brought in some great architects, and she's the one who also designed the Arizona Inn. Is
Right.
that what you were going to say too?
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Philip has, just immersed himself when we stayed there last year, and he immersed himself in her story and just
amazing woman.
discovering
Yeah,
what an influence she had on a lot of things in Tucson.
yeah. As and Ajo, my hometown, definitely has her mark all over it. There's
Uh-huh.
lovely, lovely homes in that community, uh, and it was a very prosperous mining community that had three factions. It had what we called American Town, where um, white people would live, and then we had Mexican Town where the Mexicans lived, and we had Indian Village. So
Hmm.
there are some aspects of it that are not perfect. We were segregated, not just in the town but also in the school. But it was really my generation that started to break down those barriers, and
Mm-hmm.
we started to date each other. We started to get married. We were, uh, in our home, everyone was welcome. My parents
Mm-hmm.
had just a very welcoming attitude, and we had wonderful gatherings there from the time I was a baby to, the day they died. They always had an open door policy and very welcoming and very
Mm.
warm.
Oh, I can
And
just imagine it.
well, we had great celebrations too, like as far as the town was concerned. We would have great Halloween parties, and at Christmas time, everyone would gather in the Central Plaza and watch Santa Claus come down from the tower. And you never knew who you were going to see downtown. It might be somebody that you just saw last week or somebody that
Uh-huh.
you
What
haven't
kind of
seen.
tower?
Oh, well, there was this great bell tower on the top, and
Mm.
right at 6 o'clock, when all of the town was there waiting in the plaza for Santa Claus started his trip in Ajo because Ajo starts with an A. So that's what we were convinced of. And
Mm.
then there would be a blast of fireworks
Uh-huh.
and then bright lights shining onto the bell tower, and
Oh.
Santa Claus would appear there. And then a few minutes later, he would come down waiting for his, or getting onto his sleigh with
Mm.
these reindeer that I guess as little kids we knew they weren't real, but damn, they looked real. So we went along
What,
with it.
so was it American influenced Santa Claus, or was there some Hispanic culture
I would
weaved
say
into
that
it?
that our Christmas celebrations, for the most part, were very Americanized, and it was all about Santa Claus and Christmas trees,
Mhm.
and of course the foods might vary in terms of we might have a turkey, but would also always have tamales as well or
Mhm.
enchiladas, and so the foods that we would celebrate might have much more of a Mexican influence.
Yeah. So you had mentioned the Indian village. What Indian cult
It
is that?
was it was
Totohonodon?
autumn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And what in food influence? I love food. Uh, what influence would they bring to it?
Um, I don't remember any particular influences from the O'odham population. They generally ate what we ate,
Hmm.
and maybe we ate what they ate, which was
Yeah.
like
But that kind
beans
of
and the chili and the
blends.
squash and those traditional foods that they brought to the table. I think we probably took more from them
Hmm.
uh, as Mexicans than they took from us.
We just recently had the Day of the Dead here in Tucson, but tell me what influences you have or feelings you have about that.
Well,
Uh,
it's become quite a spectacle here in
hmm.
Tucson. And I will just say something about the way we celebrated it in Ajo, which was very subdued. It was what I remember most about it was my mom making coronas by hand. Back in the day, you couldn't just go to the dollar store and get silk flowers
Hmm.
or plastic
What's
flowers
a
even.
corona?
A corona is a wreath,
Oh, okay.
and she would make them by hand with crepe paper. These beautiful flowers. She'd make these gorgeous
Mm.
roses and chrysanthemums and sweet peas and little rosebuds, so that there'd be all kinds of different kinds of flowers made from crepe paper. And then she would dip them in wax because that way they would last a little longer uh, at the cemetery.
Mm.
So she spent several weeks taking orders from people around Mexican
Oh,
town
wow.
and get and just make these coronas for everybody that put in an order. And then, as a community, on the Day of the Dead, we would go early in the morning to the cemetery and clean the cemetery, the gravesides of our loved ones, and um, and then place the coronas on there, and then end up at probably our house to eat afterwards.
Right.
So it was a very um, just a quiet kind of ceremony that we had about it. It
Hmm.
wasn't the big uh, spectacle that you have now.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that people do it. It looks like they're having a lot of fun. I think it's great that people are getting in touch with um, some aspects of death that maybe some cultures have been uncomfortable with. Um, uh, but that type of celebration is not what I'm familiar with or what I
Hmm.
do.
Yeah. Um, so you're married to Ted Ramirez, our musical folkloric troubadour,
Troubadour.
and so how long? He's from Tucson,
Right.
and can you tell me a little bit how you met and just the history of his family, which
Goes
seems
back, yeah.
to 1700s?
Yes, it does. He was one of the Ramirez family here in Tucson was one of the three oldest Spanish families that came to this part of the country, and it's all very well documented, and they were a very big influence, especially during the early period. And Ted is the official troubadour of Tucson. He's a wonderful musician that really reflects the music of this area of the Southwest. He's done a lot to promote Mexican music. And a lot of times people don't understand enough about Mexican culture.
Hmm.
A lot of times they'll think, oh, Mexican music, he must be a mariachi, and
Yeah.
mariachis are great, But there are so many other different kinds of music, and he's done a deep dive all his life, really, to
Hmm.
study the history of the Southwest and Mexico. And so he's very knowledgeable about our history, and he incorporates that
In
into
some
his
of the songs,
performances.
right.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the Southwest and in San Manuel, and we were all blended. We didn't have any segregation or anything like that. So, I grew up with a lot of the Mexican culture, and so I just always have loved and enjoyed that, and part-time on a ranch. But let's talk about food because, you know, the your calendar outside evoked the feeling you said for a party. And so, can tell me a little bit about the calendar and just what a typical party would be at your house?
Well, the
I mean, the
the
everyday practices of tortillas. Like, I want to get to that.
well, the Aztec calendar reminds me of uh, why my mom made it. She made it for our junior senior prom. I was the prom chairman, and so she was this amazing helper for all of us. And we met at my house almost every single night. The whole senior class would come over to my house after school, and we'd work for 2 or 3 hours on decorations. Um, for this junior prom that we were going to have, and the theme of it was a Mexican theme, and so we made hundreds and hundreds of beautiful flowers out of beautiful crepe paper, out of every single color, and then she made the Aztec calendars, and we made an eagle with a serpent and
Is that on like car, a float, a flatbed? What was it on? How'd you
um,
structure it?
just on the floor. She uh, well, kind of like my girls out there. It was just
Uh-huh.
a base with cement and chicken wire. You can't go wrong, you know. So, but the point of that really is how welcoming my parents
Yeah.
always were, with anyone that I ever wanted to invite to the house, and we would have almost a party every single night for 4 months, between January and April, when we
Hmm.
finally had our big dance, and she would cook. Um, a big pot of beans, beautiful, delicious, refried, cheesy beans, and make these amazing tortillas. They're called sobacanas. They're really the big flour tortillas that you can't even find to buy in
Yeah,
Tucson
no more.
anymore. It's
Yeah.
if you really want one, you've got to learn how to make them yourself. But she used to make them almost on a
Uh-huh.
daily basis. And when she didn't make the big ones, she would make the gorditas, the smaller ones.
Hmm.
And so my friends would come over to work on decorations, and she just always felt obliged to feed everybody. So, uh, if you're feeding 40 or 50 kids a night, it's going to have to be a cheap meal, and
Uh-huh.
and delicious, of course. So, so that's what she would
And how
make
would
us.
she cook them?
Well, the of course the beans could just be cooked on the stove, but the tortillas, if you want them to be really really good, you have to make them on a mesquite fire, and then you have what is called a comal, which is some kind of a metal plate that you can cook them on. They cook very quickly. The cooking part is the easy part and the fast part, but making the dough and then
Hmm.
um, stretching them out, that takes a
And she
certain amount of
was just
skill.
an expert to make him that big,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
So my son has started to develop an interest in it, and we've started making them together in my own backyard, and we've had
Uh-huh.
some success with that.
Next time you
Yeah,
better invite us
we will.
over.
uh,
And so we had red chili. Was Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, that red sauce,
oh, yeah.
it's easy to make, it's simple, but if canned enchilada sauce, all that, it doesn't
Mhm.
compare.
No, it doesn't. And none of these recipes, I think the ones that I'm familiar with and that I make quite often, it's not that they take special skills or you need, special supplies or anything like that, or really magnificent kitchen or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's just learning a recipe and then doing it over and over again, maybe perfecting it here and there. But the red chili is just essential. I mean, most of us that are of Mexican descent, it's like we have to have a certain amount of red chili every week. It's just
In your
important for us.
veins.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a process, and a lot of times when you're going to make a lot of it, like how I did for the party, I do it in stages, and I'm not afraid to ask for help either. I had two of my
Mm-hmm.
beautiful nieces come
Mm-hmm.
over, and we just spent like an hour or more just cleaning the pods. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the first step, you know, and then we, boiled the pods, and then we sautéed them, and then we blended them. And then on another day, I made the roasts,
Mm-hmm.
and on another day, after they had cooled in the refrigerator for 24 hours, then I cut up the meat. So
Mm-hmm.
if you take it all on at last minute, it might not come out that great. But if you do a little bit at a time,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing it to feed a lot of people, it's better if you space it out. And it's the pleasure of doing it with someone you love.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's really nice for that companionship of sitting with my beautiful nieces and having them help me and catching up with their lives, and and giving people uh, a part in it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's their great chili too. It's not just their tias that they
Yeah.
help make it.
Yeah. Such a great memory they're going to have.
I hope so.
Yeah. So if you wanted to tell anyone about Tucson, what would you say about coming to Tucson?
I think Tucson is a beautiful place, and I hope that we do a little bit more to preserve its original beauty. I am interested in that, but it does have so much to offer, and it's not necessarily a strip mall in on Speedway that attracts me.
Yeah.
But if you just drive in any direction, 30 minutes in this direction or that direction,
Mm-hmm.
you can be in a completely different natural environment.
Mm-hmm.
So what I love the most about Tucson really is the perfectly beautiful natural environment that we have. We have nature treats here almost every single day. Um, I think culturally it's a very interesting place because we have Mexican influence, we have O'odham influence, Yaqui influence, and so uh, this is a place where there's been a real effort to preserve
Mm-hmm.
some of the older cultures
Right. I
and
always
keep
loved
them
the
alive.
barrio with the Chinese markets.
Yes.
And they had all the old stuff that had been in there for 10 years or something, and just all cultures wandering around.
Those wonderful old mud adobe buildings. I'm waiting for someone to, those restoration shows. They should have one about mud adobes,
Yeah.
and not in that sterilized.
Yeah, the cliche style,
Yeah,
like your old house and like my house on
yeah, yeah.
Meyer.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
that was
We were
those.
lucky to.
We were lucky. We had the barrio in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
with the nanas and the tatas.
And just you walk down the streets and you smell tortillas cooking on a mesquite fire.
Oh, yeah.
You hear
The chilies roasting out back.
yes, and the radio playing, KXEW. So playing Mexican music, for the whole neighborhood to hear, So it was a really special time to grow up in Tucson back in
Yeah,
those
and
days.
if you smelled someone cooking, there's no problem. Just go knock on the door.
And it's a beautiful thing that I think that we can reach back and maybe do that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't just squirrel ourselves away. We still have so much to offer and so much to learn from each other.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we'll say goodnight, and thanks for coming to my Tucson and meeting my friends.
Yay! Thank you, Neenie. It was fun.
All right, love you.
Or we could shake hands if you want.